They're saying that is going to hurt operations across the county governments and they'll be forced to shut down. On the other hand, there's the ongoing, like I said, sort of war of words between the national government or the Kenya Kwanza administration and members of the clergy, the men of cloth, with President William Ruto's lieutenants, led by Gladys Boss-Sholei, continuing their onslaught on religious leaders, especially the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops, following this press conference last week, castigating the government over failure to implement their pre-election pledges. In fact, they said there is a culture of not keeping promises here in the country, or lying, if you'd call it that. Now, this particular morning, we'll be looking at all that, even as lecturers continue with their industrial action. But, ladies and gentlemen, before we kickstart this conversation, Honorable Nyamu, I was to ask you this question. Some of your followers are concerned, and there was a report that auctioneers are hovering over your head of around 1.25 million of rent. What is happening?
I didn't see this one. I didn't see that one coming in this interview.
Some of your followers are just concerned about that.
You see, there are people who think that they can use rogue, they can sponsor media, they can use rogue means to twist you and, you know, intimidate you into bulging and doing and going to their whims to make commitments that they know very well are not right. And I'm here to teach them that it doesn't always work with everyone. The right way has to be followed. And I am not one to address my issues in the public.
So your followers should not be concerned, everything is in order?
No, they should not be concerned. Yesterday I got people wanting to raise money for me. They think I am broke. No, I am not broke. Thank you for the concern. I actually got some contributions on my phone, and I am thankful to Kenyans, but no, I'm fine. I don't need it right now. When I need it, I will definitely be giving you a pay bill number.
Fair enough.
Thank you for your concern.
Fair enough, Honorable Nyamu. Let's get to the conversation now. Honorable Peter Orero, let me begin with you. We saw the press conference by Catholic bishops last week, and they called out the Kenya Kwanza administration in regards to not keeping their promises, not ensuring that they stick to what they pledged to Kenyans during the pre-election period. Now, after that, on Friday, the president sort of fired back at the bishops, but on Saturday, he acknowledged that indeed, yes, there are challenges, and he promised to tackle them. Though he didn't explain how he will do that, but he promised to tackle them. But we've seen his key lieutenants, including Deputy Speaker Gladys Boss-Sholei, continuing with the onslaught on the Catholic bishops. But yesterday we saw the SCK Church coming to the defense of the Catholic bishops. First of all, I mean, why all this fuss, if at all? Let me ask you, do you believe on the issues raised by the Catholic bishops to begin with? Are these genuine concerns that the country is facing?
Of course, all Kenyans would say that they are genuine concerns as a country. But you know, the church and the politics, they are not at variance. They always go together. The former Bishop Okulu wrote a book on church and politics. My concern is that the bishops raised their concern after a very long time. They must be consistent. That is the only thing. I think they have been a bit submissive. They have not been speaking their mind. So when they spoke their mind, then the system thought that they overstepped the bounds of genuine maturity, and maybe they thought they crossed the red line. But basically they are representing the opinion of Kenyans and the state in which we are as a Kenyan nation. I think there was nothing out of step in their statements. Maybe they have maybe facts to verify, except there are certain statements that you can never have parameters to measure the extent maybe of lies, some things which are not measurable. But you can have a proof on what promises they made for Kenyans, and up to now maybe they have not been fulfilled. It could be the state of the economy of this country, but what the the priest raised to all Kenyans made a lot of sense. And the government should have taken the initiative to look at where they have come from, where they are, and where they are going. We need not to bash the clergy, because they bring the morality, they bring with them the ethics, and they bring with them the aspirations of this country. I believe that we should be responsive. We should take a back and look at what is raised as politicians, and we should not go on the offensive to just attack the clergy. But what we are saying is that we must have a systematic approach towards the concerns raised by the clergy and see, let's look at which ones resonates with the Kenyans, which ones are the truth, the real truth, instead of having some of us taking on the clergy to say that what they raised have no basis. They are not politicking, but as a country we are going through a rough period in terms of the economy, and in terms, and you know, when we talk of economy, we look at a whole setup of things. As much as we are saying that the economic growth is, the inflation rate has gone down, and you know the inflation rate has various parameters used to determine the inflation rate. But the people on the ground, when you talk to them, the capacity of our money and people, the money at the hands of the people has really gone down in this country. So we need to regenerate the microfinance, the middle level business people, so that we can have money moving within the hands of the people in this country. So I think that is where we are.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And I believe that the clergy are within the premises of their rights to tell Kenyans what is going on within this country, and let us not really bash the clergy. Let's look at what we are not doing right, and ensure that Kenyans don't feel neglected. I think that is what they are trying to say.
Now, fair enough. Honorable Karen Nyamu, let me just read a statement from Archbishop Most Reverend Philip Anyolo, a statement released yesterday, and I'll just read part of it. The donations made to Soweto Catholic Church on Sunday, 17th November 2024, are in violation of the directives and the law. This include the governor's donation of 200,000 to the parish choir and parish mission council, the president's donation of 600,000 to the choir and PMC, and 2 million for the construction of the Father's house. These funds will be refunded to the respective donors. Furthermore, the promised additional 3 million for the construction of the Father's house, as well as the donation of a parish bus by President William Ruto, is hereby declined. Now, first of all, let me ask you, President William Ruto on July 5th, 2024, did ban donations to churches and Harambes by state officers. But on Sunday, it is not the first time, because even a week after he made that particular pronouncement in July, he made contributions, donations to church. I mean, the Catholic bishops last week raised concerns when it comes to the government standing by what they said. President William Ruto here has not stood by what he said, by saying there will be no donations by state officers to churches. From where you sit to begin with, do you believe the move by Most Reverend Archbishop Philip Anyolo to decline the funds offered to them and refund the money that had already been contributed is the right way to go?
It is actually good that I was actually in that church service when the president extended his generosity. I want to say generosity because I don't want to say it's donations. What the president banned, or what was stopped, is fundraisings or contributions by politicians and members of parliament, or even leaders of any rank in church. And because I was present, what the president donated, gave, was uniform, money for uniform for choirs. What Sakaja did was just a token of appreciation, because the remarks he made, the remarks that preceded the handing of that cash, was that they have made him happy. Mumeimba vizuri. It's just like the way you can give someone
It's just like
on
a
the
token.
impulse.
It's
Yeah,
a token.
on impulse,
But
because there was no donation going on in that church.
But a token
on that
of
day.
millions.
No, Sakaja gave, I think, 100,000, and the president gave 300 for uniform. How much is uniform for over 60 members of a choir?
The entire amount is totaling to around 5.3 million. That was promised or handed over. Some were handed over then, and some were promised.
With particulars, certain amount is going towards this. Certain amount is going to. It is gifting, if you ask me. It is gifting because in Senate we have a law proposed by the government itself banning harambes in church. So the president is aware, and he's the one who is championing the banning of that kind of culture, where politicians are coming in church to compete who is raising more money, you know. In the hard times, economic times that Kenyans are facing, and politicians are competing who is going to raise the most money in a church, for example. And that law was proposed by the majority leader in the Senate last week. We are about to debate it. We are about to go for first reading and all that, and we are soon going to be banning harambes in churches. But in my view, and because I was in that church and it was done in my presence, I can advise the public that those were tokens.
Tokens of amounting to 5.3 million.
You see,
I mean,
we're talking about the president.
you see.
You don't expect him to give 50,000.
We want to come in
The amount is neither here nor
we
there.
want to come in 3 angles here. One, the public. The banning of harambes for public servants and state officers came in timely, because the public themselves were misusing us. Let me put it clearly here on national TV, and I think all politicians know that the public have been misusing, especially the politicians, when it comes to the issue of fundraising. It's true. There are some genuine concerns like medical, maybe fees and whatever. Those are genuine concerns. But you would realize that on every weekend, I don't know about Nairobi, but for us who are in rural constituencies, no, I think our places are worse. You know, the women groups, the youth, and then they call all the politicians, especially on opposing sides. If they know that Mheshimiwa Rero here, there is somebody who wants his seat, they also invite him. They give you a card as the chief guest, and they also give them that card also as the chief guest, so that you can come now and compete giving out money. So actually Harambe reached a point where it was actually being misused. It was no longer serving its own purpose. But when it comes to donations, surely, and I'm talking to Kenyans, as a member of parliament, if you come to me and you have a medical problem, you want to go for an MRI, you have 5,000, MRI costs 30,000, shouldn't I help you? Let's ask that question to the general public. Shouldn't I help you because I'm a politician? The answer is yes. If you go to church, or even us who go to mosques, and after the prayers now, there is somebody who has come for some help. You see, shouldn't we help him because we are politicians or because we are public servants? So we should be very careful on what was banned and realistically what should happen, you see. If somebody comes to me with a genuine problem, I'm going to assist. Now, when it comes to the presidency now, and I believe this we've been assisting, even the 3 of us here, and even those outside there, even the PSS, even the CSS, they've been helping in their communities because they have to. But when it comes to the president now, you know, the media will always be there, isn't it? There's very little that he can do behind the curtain. And I think that is where the problem is. You are talking about 5 million. Yes, it's a lot of money, but given who our president is, even before he became a president, 5 million to him isn't a big deal. If it was from me, then he would ask me, where did I get it from? Because I'm a member of parliament and my means are not. So,
Honorable Tandazo,
sure.
one of the other main concerns is that the president, these were donations to the church. This is, clearly they were not gifts. These were donations to the church because it includes the buying of a bus. Now, so let me finish. One of the main concerns is that the president is, disregarding his own directive.
No, I think here that is where I'm saying we are getting it wrong. There is a difference between a harambe, where it's organized, people to go and contribute, and I think the misuse here is where the organizers now bring in different people to come and compete to see who is going to give out more money and get the most relations or the biggest clubs and whatever. I think that is where the problem is. But when the president, comes to my constituency, for instance, and I have a secondary school which doesn't have a bus, and I ask him as my leader if we can give that school a bus, and he says yes, the bus can be available. That is not a harambe. Certainly, that is not against what he actually proclaimed. And since that directive was given, I don't think there's been any harambe where the public servant or a state officer has been involved in. But when it comes to donations, I've said you cannot avoid it because there are genuine cases where people will come to you. To me, at my level, to an MCA at his level, and when it comes to the president, of course, now people go there at that level where they are not expecting the president again to give 5,000 shillings. You see, this will be very clear, and I think this one we cannot avoid as human beings. As I walk out there and I find somebody asking for it, I'll give him. Now, is it a donation or a gift? You see, a gift is where maybe namshukuru, namregeshea, but this somebody has come to me with a genuine problem. Certainly it's a donation, but it's not a harambe. Okay. You see, this should be very clear.
And again, yeah. For clarity, because I said I was present, it was on the request of the choir that they get the bus. And I want to tell our church leaders, our clergy, not to be drawn into politics. Because I listened to their statement, not the one that was registered, the one that was done by the Catholic, yes, the Conference of Catholic Bishops. And I listened to them talking about corruption, because they listed several concerns. And the first one, they spoke about corruption. And now corruption, as we know it, it involves money. But they were very clear that they were not talking about money, because there was a rejoinder after talking about corruption. They said they're talking about abuse of office, some capture, and it was a bit vague. And if I want to deduce, because it was left for us to deduce what they're talking about, I think they were talking about the control. For example, the executive, they were trying to insinuate the executive has control over parliament, because they do not like how when there's a government position, how the parliament, both houses rally behind it.
They raised other key issues, including the rollout of SHA. They raised issues concerning CBC. Very genuine concerns.
But what I'm talking about is one of the what they raised. And shortly after, in some quarters, we had people associating themselves with that statement. And I don't want to talk about that because I don't want to belittle it to political squabbles. Because another thing they made a reference to is the political wrangles. From where you sit, do you know of any political wrangles in the country right now? They must have been referring to the impeachment of the deputy president. If you ask me, their statement is leaning towards what happened in that week. Even the control they're trying to say the executive has on houses.
Why not pay attention to the key issues like SHA, like CBC?
Those are the key issues. On CBC, the government is committed. We have seen the government has constructed 16,000 new classrooms.
I can see Honorable Orero is smiling because he belongs to the National Assembly.
They have employed a record 56,000 teachers, and they are progressively, they have shown commitment in CBC because
it's issues cutting across the entire education sector, because currently we have even the lecturers on strike. But before we talk about that, let me just engage Honorable Orero. Now, Honorable Orero, President William Ruto is believed to have, in a way, through the support of the church, ascended to power. Because ever since being the deputy president, he has been close to the church. And many perceive that as one of the key reasons as to why he rose, or rather ascended to power. But, then he was the darling of the church. He was, fully supported by the church, most churches. What is wrong when the same churches that supported him hold him accountable?
I think is one of those states that anyone would not wish to be at. I've been listening to my colleagues here, our cultural orientation and the difference between Harambe and donations. Harambe formed our cultural orientation since independence. And the word Harambe is confusing because it's not an English word. But when we translate it, I think it means donation. So for that one, I would leave it to rest. But what I believe is that His Excellency has been a person associated with the church. And of course, his power really, during his campaigns, he was always giving donations to churches, and they were accepting. I don't know where they separated. I don't know where the church withdrew the support of the president. I don't know their predicament with the church. But as far as I know, he has been very, very close with the churches. But because the churches are there, the bishops and the clergy are there to point out the ills in a society. And I think that is the basis of their work, that they must always be truthful and must always point the ills of the society, irrespective of the consequences. And I think this is the departure. When they are coming out to talk about the ills within the society and the consequences, that is where the rubber meets. I think they are at variance with the followers and the president. And their statements, they were a bit stinging, because they captured, maybe most of them, the feelings of the majority of Kenyans. But of course, I don't agree at the moment we have wrangles. At the moment, I think they were referring, just as my colleague has said, about the impeachment of the former deputy president. And that was a political process. And sometimes political matters are solved politically. But we must also know, when we talk about the executive and the parliament and they're saying it is a capture, no, we have different types of governance system, presidential and parliamentary system. And sometimes you might not know what happens within the parliament, the executive. But basically we have separation of powers. The parliament, we have our roles, just like the Senate have their roles. And when it is within our opinion, and maybe the opinion of others if necessary, feel that the motion will be brought within parliament, we deal with it as a motion in parliament. So we can never say that all members of parliament are captured. I think they operate within their senses and within what they feel is right for this country. But I believe the clergy is our eye, is our third eye, and they must always look at what is happening in the country.
Fair enough, Honorable Borero. I just want us to take a brief breather before I engage you, Honorable Kasim Tandaza, because one of the things that was raised by the youth during the Gen Z-led demonstrations was the issue of church contributions and donations, because the question was, where are all this money or funds coming from? You know, are they proceeds of corruption? And why is the church accepting them? That is why President William Ruto did ban harambes and donations. But we'll talk about that after this commercial break. And of course, that also includes the issue of funds to counties. Don't go away.
Catch every thrilling moment of the English Premier League. The German FA Cup.
Harry Kane! Harry Kane scores! How many times have you heard that?
La Liga. Serie A.
Marcus Thuram! What a start to life in the Milan derby!
And all Manchester City games.
He goes and Stones and Haaland!
Live on K24. This season, K24 is your playground for champions. Don't miss out. Tune in and watch the best football from around the world on Maskani ya Machampe live.